All the amazing people watching my YouTube channel. Subscribe. Y'all, look at me. I look a mess. And I had just came from washing my hair, y'all. So I'm about to get these braids in for you guys. While I do that, I'm going to do a little story time. Yep, that's right. Do a little story time. And it's going to get intense. It gets intense. And you're going to love it. Period. I'm going to do this voiceover of basically when a female cousin touched me. And nobody really knows this, and it's a real private story, but I love you guys so much. I thought I'd share it with you. And please, take heart. And I need y'all to know I'm not really too big on parting. Like, it's not a big deal to me. Everything don't have to be part, like, straight or nothing like that. Like, the lines just have to look neat, but I don't want, like, crisp lines and everything. I just kind of want to braid through it. There goes my Jamaican castor oil. Now let's get back to the story. Like, if you're in the comments and you're saying stuff, just please take heart, because this was really a hard story to tell. Now I zoomed in because I want you guys to see how I'm braiding, because I start off with the braid and then I add on hair. I'm not just braiding all the way through. And it was really, like, complicated because I was trying to stay away from names and such, and I didn't want nobody to feel no type of way about me. So basically, this happened. Now, when you see this braid, you see that two of the braids have hair on it. The other braid doesn't have any hair. And then when I add on the hair, that's when I'm going to add that braid onto the other hair. Say when I was about 10 years old. And this was a cousin that I really looked up to. Like, I really wanted to be just like her. Like, if she was dressing this way, I had to dress this way. If she had her hair this way, I had to have my hair this way. I was talking, get all her mannerisms and everything that she had. Like, I want y'all to watch this connection. Now, watch how I connect this hair right here. You see it? Like, I was really trying to take that on because I looked up to her so much. Coming up, I had brothers and sisters, but my sisters was all in Africa, so I didn't really have any sisters. So I really counted her as being one of my sisters. I really counted her on, like... Now I want you to notice how there is no knots in this. That's why they call it the knotless. Being like family to me, I really counted on her, and I really loved her for the longest of time, and I wanted to be like her. So, like, when I was 10 years old, this happened, and this kind of like drew a little bit of a wedge in our relationship as I grew up, just because, like, I understood what it was. Now I'm gonna speed through it for a minute, but that first process y'all seen is basically what I'm doing through the whole head. So I'm gonna just keep braiding, and hopefully I'm entertaining y'all, and y'all like watching this process. Some people just like watching these type of videos, so I'm here. If you're that type of person that like watching these type of videos, I am going to definitely quench that thirst. Please watch me do this style. Thank you. Love you. Bye. What it was that she was doing or what was going on when I got grown. As a kid, you don't think that. You really don't know anything. And I would say this was like one of my first sexual experiences. I'll say my first ever sexual experience, but I don't count it. Every time somebody asks me, like, what was your first sexual experience, I don't mention it because I feel like it wasn't my own will or my own doing. So at the time I was like 10 and she was like about 16. So obviously there's like a big age gap there, and I was really, really young, and I didn't really know anything. So let's say I used to come over her house. She used to stay, if I say this, let me see. I'm trying to figure out a different location so I don't, because they don't know if I say it. So I'll say Philadelphia. She used to stay in Philadelphia, and I used to come and visit her all the time. Like, we would go to Philly. At that time, I was in Staten Island, New York. So that's just where I'm from. So I was in Staten Island, and I would go to Philly to see this cousin and hang out with her because she was a girl and I was a girl, and we just would hang out together. She was like my one friend, honestly. Like, I had friends where I was living, but she was like, my parents never allowed us to spend a night at nobody's house. So her family was like the place that I could go and spend a night and have that girl cousin experience and like really hang out with her. So I was really, really geeked to really spend time with her or really see her, all of that, because I could spend a night at her house. All my friends, I couldn't spend a night at their house. No, nothing. My parents was really, really strict. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to, hang out with her, whatever. And she was really dope. Like, she was really smart, and everybody wanted to, like, be like her and dress like her. Or, like, she was just, in my eyes, looking like hindsight now, I don't know if that was the case in reality, but being a young girl, I was like, yo, she real dope. And she was like the big sister I always wanted and never had. So anyways, I went to Philly to see her, and I would always come to see her, always hang out with her. And I would say the first time it happened specifically, I want to say my 10th birthday. That was the first time it ever happened. prior to that, I would go over, we would hang out, all of that. I don't know what made her want to do that on like then, but it was my 10th birthday, and I remember that weekend I had asked my mother like, oh, can I go over to hang out with her, because I couldn't go nowhere. My mom was not trying to let me spend the night at nobody's house. My mother was really, really strict, and she was just not going. And she, you know how African parents are. You can't spend the night at nobody's house. You can't go and be with nobody and hang out with nobody. No, nothing. They was just really, really strict. So we couldn't go nowhere. But I know I could always go to her house. And I just wanted to get out and not be in my house and inside or bored. So I was like, yep, let me go to her house. My mom finally agreed. And, but she would always let me go to her house anyways, and this was like my mom's cousin. So my cousin is my mom's cousin's daughter. I don't know what level of cousins that would make us on, but yeah, whatever. So I went and I hanged out with her. And I remember that day we had like a whole bunch of snacks, and we was like watching TV, like really, really hanging out. And I was like, oh man, I'm hanging out with my big cousin, what. I just felt like I was all that talking to her grown friends and stuff, like I was just grown with them, hanging out with them. We ate a whole bunch of snacks and stuff, and we stayed up real, real late. Her friends was like, I remember at the time, I know they were like sipping, like drinking. And I couldn't drink, and I wasn't allowed to drink. Hell, they were 16, they couldn't drink, but they were still drinking. And they would give me a little bit of liquor with them and be like, yeah, she gonna sip with us, woo. And I felt like I was 10, like, man, I'm young, this is a big deal for me. Not only am I hanging out with my big cousin and her friends, but they giving me liquor, like, wow. So I thought that I was just the coolest thing in the world. You couldn't tell me no nothing. And I'm hanging out with them, and I want to be just like them. And that's why till this day I don't really hang in big female crowds or like go out with a lot of girls, because of what happened and what transpired. We all hanged out and stayed out late, and then her friends left, and me and her was there. So she had a room with one of those big old beds, like the big beds, and we can sleep in her bed. We normally sleep in her bed together because she had a big bed, and it was never an issue. But this specific night, we slept in the bed, whatever. Normally I'm a kid, so I wear my little pajamas, little matching pajamas my mama packed up in the bag for me. And she was like, nah, wear one of my little big shirts. So back then she used to, remember them big jerseys that they used to really have back then, and it was like a cool thing. She used to have like a couple that she used to sleep in. So she gave me a pair, she had a pair, so I was like, okay, yeah. Like in my eyes, like, wow, like I'm wearing one of my cousin's big jerseys. Like she really like taking me being like, realizing that I'm older. Like she really realizing that I'm grown too, and I'm really feeling myself, 10-year-old me. Everything my cousin did was dope to me, so I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm feeling grown or whatever. That's cool. And earlier that day, she put some makeup on me and everything, so I'm really feeling myself, like woo, right? We get in the bed, we laying down together, everything, and we sleeping like regular, and I'm like trying to get some sleep like regular. She on one time on the other side, and she like tell me like, oh, you want to do something? And I'm like, something like what? Yeah, I want to do it. Let's do it. What you want to do? Like anything you want to do, I want to do. So I'm thinking like she's gonna show me one of her, big girl tricks or whatever. I don't know what I thought maybe we was gonna dress up. Maybe she was gonna be like, oh, we gonna dress up all night and try on all my clothes, and I've been wanting to try her clothes, been wanting to raid her closet. So I'm like, girl, if that's what you want to do, or you want to give me a makeover, you want to take these little barrettes up out my hair and stuff, because at 10 my mama was still doing barrettes and all of that. My mama, just a whole nother story. But she was just like, nah, we do something else. Come here. You ever did this or you ever did that? So first it was the kissing, right? Okay, y'all. So the front of my hair is done. I'm about to go to bed. And I'm going to do the back tomorrow. But the front is all done. Oh, praise the Lord. And I'm going to keep it short this time. I wanted you guys to see that it took 2 days to do. But yeah, I'm going to get back to the story because I know y'all already invested. I didn't really know how to kiss, and this how I know, like, it just was really, really weird, because I had like back teeth that had never grew back, and that teeth took a long time. Like all my tooth had grew back in as a kid, but the back teeth always took like the longest to grow back in. Back then my back teeth didn't even grow in. So this girl was basically putting her tongue up in my 10 years. She's like 16. She in two weeks I remember she was gonna be 17. She putting her tongue in my mouth. I'm like 10. And I don't know what to do. I just have her tongue in my mouth with a lot of spit. So I'm like, what the fuck? Like, and I remember I was like, back then, like, what is she doing? Why is she doing this? Like, why is she putting her tongue in my mouth? Like, why is she being extra? Why is she doing this? And she was doing that, and it was just, like, really weird to me. And I was just like, ugh, like, it tastes weird. Like, no. And then she was like, you got to do it, too. And then I was like, nah, I don't want to do that no more. Like, I don't like that. No. You know what I mean? And at that time, I was like liking boys at that time. Back then, I at least I wasn't really educated too much on lesbians and bisexuals and all of that. Nobody had that conversation, especially my African parents was not sitting down having that conversation with me. So I don't know if it was something that she was struggling with herself, because I never known her to be lesbian, bisexual, or nothing. I've never known her to do that or feel that type of way about, you know, the opposite sex. And ain't nothing wrong with it, but it's never been discovered to me. I knew of her having a boyfriend back then, but she was trying to kiss me, and then she started like putting her hands between my legs and like the rubbing, you know, of the, you know, and I just was like, okay. And honestly, it felt good at that for me, but I hadn't been through nothing. Ain't nobody ever touched me like that before, you know, so it felt good, and it felt good at the time. And I was just like, okay, so she's touching me and it feels good. I didn't know what I was feeling. Like, I was just like, oh, it feels good, but it was just like an awkward thing. And then the oral sex thing happened. It wasn't no penetration of no toys or nothing like that, but it was definitely some touching and inappropriate touching and all of that, and fingering and all of that. So it was definitely weird for me. So after that happened, she was like, oh, let's just keep this our secret. Don't tell nobody. And I'm your cousin and I love you, and it's normal. It's completely normal. It's no big deal. I love you and you're my cousin, and we could do this. So I remember now this kept on after my 10th birthday for a while. I felt like if I had to say no to her, it was always an issue. I always had to say yes or let her do it, or she'd be like, I'm not your friend, I'm not gonna hang out with you, you can't come over no more. After that whole situation happened, one time my parents caught us doing it, and my mom was like, what's going on here? At the time, my mom had told me that, you know, y'all both are like lesbians, and y'all both are doing this and doing that. And at the time, I'm like, yo, bro, I'm still like 10 and she's 16. How are we lesbians? Why aren't you cracking down on this girl for touching your daughter? Like, why are you not saying nothing? Y'all both was young. My mom had all the excuses in the world. And I remember she told my brothers, and my brothers teased me about being a lesbian and saying, oh, you was a lesbian back then. And at that time, I didn't really know what it was. And I remember I felt so much shame behind that, or how they talked to me. And I felt really, really bad about myself. But at the time, nobody gave her any bad emotions, anything. Nobody teased her about it, and she was the oldest. They just made me feel bad about it. I remember I used to like feel like something was wrong with me, or like I'm just like messed up or whatever, because I always felt like I allowed it. But now that I'm grown, I know I didn't allow anything to happen. She was older than me. She should have known better. She should have never came at me like that. And I trusted her because I thought that we was family, and you know, she wouldn't do nothing like that to me.
You tell how much in that Missy Jetta, y'all. I do it all, I don't peek at Jetta.